Welcome to Break Free from Corporate, the only podcast dedicated to bringing you business success secrets from leading entrepreneurs with one thing in common. They left the corporate world, became their own boss, and are now living incredible lives. To access previous and all future episodes, visit breakfreefromcorporate.com and subscribe today.
Welcome everyone, it's Gavin Sequeira here from Break Free from Corporate, and I'm excited to bring you another great guest on our podcast series. His name is James McCracken, and I've known James for a few years now, and he actually interviewed me on one of his podcasts many years ago, and today we're going to reciprocate, and I'm going to grab his story and share that with you guys because he's got a fantastic journey that he's going to share on how he left the corporate world many years ago, set up his own business. James and I actually share a very similar background from where we used to work. I think he worked in places like HP and then did some work at Census, and he's got a great sales background, very strong in that area. And now he helps mortgage brokers, I believe, to better their business. James, are you on the line?
I most certainly am, Gavin. Thanks for introducing me.
Welcome to the program.
Pleasure to be here.
Fantastic. So, James, look, I've been wanting to do this with you for quite a while, actually, and I think it's just timing that has brought us together again. And I'm excited to share your journey because I remember at the time when we were talking, I was just getting this particular business I'm doing now off the ground, and you asked some really great questions at the time, and we were sharing that with our audience. But today, I really want to focus on your journey and how you got started. So, tell us a little bit about your corporate background, I suppose, just very briefly. And why did you decide to go out on your own?
Well, I'll answer the latter part first, which is,
sure.
This is going to sound ridiculous, potentially for some of your listeners, that there was, I felt at a young age, like late teens, early 20s, that I had something that was important to do in life. I didn't know what it was. I felt like I said, it might sound like all too voodoo, but like I had some sort of calling that was important for me to put my energy and effort into. And I just didn't know what it was. Though that was somewhere in the back of my mind, I just went down the mainstream path. And yes, I did work at Census for quite a while. I worked in sales. I then managed sales teams for many years. I then, at some point, used to have people coming up to me that I didn't even know were employed in the business saying, "Oh, we hear you're a really great coach. Could you coach me?" And I'm like, "Who are you? And do you even work here?"
Yeah.
And so that happened. And anyway, that made me think, well, maybe I'm pretty good at that coaching thing. So I then worked in coaching roles at Census, and then headed up the coaching and sales training division of that business. And that was, I guess the corporate journey.
Yeah. And so really you were approached by people, and I guess you discovered this knack that you had. Obviously you were good at dealing with people in sales and all of that, but then you developed this ability of yours to coach and lead and help and really guide people on a certain path. Was that really the foundation on what you're really doing today?
Yeah, it is. And that was a deliberate decision on my part because when I was in sales, I was offered face-to-face sales roles. So I was selling over the telephone at the time. And to be perfectly frank, face-to-face sales paid way, way more than sales management, immeasurably. We used to have sales people that said, I can't take that sort of pay cut to become a sales manager. Yeah. And so, but I went into sales management because I was thinking many years down the path, these skills that I'm developing will be useful for me. So that was essentially, I guess, investing in my own development rather than earning the money that I, absolutely would have made if I was in a face-to-face sales gig.
Yeah, sure. So that actually sounds like you made a tough, well, maybe in your case, not such a tough career choice, but, for anyone to really take a pay cut, it's not the most ideal thing, but I guess you were looking more longer term in terms of the skills you would need. And there was a certain trade-off. So you worked out pretty early on, even in your corporate career, that this would be a better path for you rather than just doing the same thing over and over again. Is that right?
There was that. There was also a part where I felt, and might sound a bit arrogant or cocky, but I felt like I could do that sales part well, and it probably would get boring because I wouldn't have a challenge. Like I would hit really good results, and what next? Whereas I also felt that I wasn't really good in those early days, at least, of dealing with people, and a very different skill, of course, to lead and manage rather than to sell. And so there was also a part of me wanting to build a skill set that I wasn't actually sure if I could do well. So there was a little bit of doubt and hesitation, but equally thinking, well, I'll never find out unless I give it a go.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, look, I've been in sales as well myself, and sales is a very much, it's one of those great areas of that you can work in where there is no limit to your potential depending on what area you work in and what you're selling and all of that sort of stuff. But if you're good and you back yourself, you can have a really great career in sales. But it's all about you and your personal achievement, hitting those KPIs, winning reward trips and all that sort of stuff. Sales management, on the other hand, very different because you're now really there to help others perform. Obviously, you've got your KPIs and all, but you're really there to develop and encourage others to hit their numbers and really do well. So you're suddenly removing yourself from the picture, and it's about the team.
Yeah, very much. And that wasn't an easy transition to make because I was a stereotypical example of someone that had a good technical skill set and very different to being a good manager or a good leader. It isn't to necessarily expect or think everyone can have the same motivations or the same skills that I might have developed. And to be perfectly frank, I put time and effort into developing them. That wasn't something that came naturally to me either.
Sure.
But that was a mindset shift that I had to make. And I would say that took closer to years rather than days or weeks to become able to recognize that when things went well, I should give recognition to the team. When things went poorly, I take responsibility for that. And like I say, that was a journey for me to have and step into, not something that came completely naturally to me.
Yeah. And what you're saying sounds like the hallmarks of a really good leader. A leader tends to give recognition to the team when things go well, but, take all the responsibility when things don't. And unfortunately, you and I have both probably seen many cases in the corporate world where that sometimes doesn't happen. When things don't go well, fingers are pointed at the wrong people. And when things go well, the praise is taken by the wrong people too. So I think that the fact that you figured out a lot of this stuff is a really great testament to you, wanting to be a better leader.
Census was a business that excelled in internal politics, and that was a game I wasn't at all good at. So, when I said something, I meant it, and people, there were certainly people that would say something and mean something completely different, and people had their own agendas, and it was one of those environments that, though I did for the most part really enjoy my time there, I thought it was a fantastic business. It certainly had the elements or the hallmarks of a bit of the, I'll CC my boss on this, so I'm covering my ass in terms of, the communication, et cetera. And as some people talk about this idea of, if you've got that type of culture, you've got a protective culture where people are scared to potentially innovate, to thrive, to make decisions, et cetera. And therefore, everyone's on the wary or on the lookout for, how does this impact me? And we're sort of covering our own tracks. We're protecting our own turf. We're not collaborating, and we're not cohesive between business units, et cetera. And like I say, Census in some regards was a brilliant place to work, really, really world class in some respects.
Sure.
But equally, in some regards, there was opportunity for the business as a whole to be more cohesive and to be less political and more purpose driven. And I felt that it certainly wasn't that in the latter stages of me being there.
Yeah, look, I totally resonate with what you're saying because, when I was in my corporate roles as well, I found there was lots of great things that I loved about, the places I worked, and there's a lot of room to improve and all of that. But where I fell down in one of the things I just wasn't very good at was playing the political game. And, if I had to point to one reason why I decided to leave corporate, it was really, that game wasn't built for me. I wasn't very good at it. I was good at my job. I was good at helping my team and all of that. But at the end of the day, it took a lot of energy to just play that political game. And I decided that was why I had to move on. But I think it's fantastic that you saw that scope and you developed certain skills. When did you decide to, when was enough, and then how did that transition sort of happen between, what you were doing to, I think I'll do this now or do something different?
When I was managing sales teams, I was looking at doing a course where I could further my own education around coaching and leadership, etc. So I put forward essentially a business case to the business for a coaching program. It was fairly costly. That program was about $15K, and they rejected it, and they said no, we're not going to pay for it. Just sort of disappointing, because I could have put forward a $50K MBA from a known university, and they would have funded that. Like, actually, I would have had to fund it, but I'd do the course and I'm reimbursed.
Yes.
But they wouldn't do the coaching program. So anyway, I went ahead and did that of my own accord, and then, as it so happens, that was somewhat contributing to the further promotion that I received over time, because I think I was the only person, certainly in that department, who was spending their own money to develop themselves.
Wow.
So, and that's not good or bad. It's just what it is.
It is what it is.
And to be perfectly frank, I would have continued to make excuses and stay there and compromise with all of the challenges that were there, like the politics, because I was pretty well paid.
Sure.
And so, like a lot of corporate gigs, when you earn good income, it's, the golden handcuffs. It's hard to compromise with that and go, well, why would I give this up? Oh, I will compromise with the challenges of the role in order to have the security of the income.
Yes.
And so I wasn't given that choice, which therefore made it easier for me, because they said your role's redundant, and that was somewhat fortuitous, because I feel like that I would have always made an excuse for not taking that next step. I would have always been, for example, the fact that when I left, my wife, or my partner, gave birth to our second child 2 weeks later. So she was on mat leave. I had no income, and yet here we are starting the business. In hindsight, it's not a smart thing to do, but I would have easily made an excuse for why that wasn't a great time to do it.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I mean, thanks for sharing a lot of that, because everyone has their own challenges, and it sounds like you had mountains of reasons why you could have been perfectly safe and secure and just bit your lip and just stayed in a role and maybe make some compromises there. And you might have even been compromising on some of your values and things you might have believed in, but you made the tough choice to back yourself and go out on your own. And obviously things have worked out well for you from there. But walk us through, James. So obviously a decision was made either way. Regardless, you're now out of the organization.
Yes.
You're now faced with this choice of putting in all your effort into something that doesn't even really exist, but it's in your head. So how do you transition yourself mentally? Like, what's the mindset like? Is it do or die, or is it like, I always knew I could do this and I just have to do these steps? Were you prepared? Like, walk us through that.
Well, I would say that no amount of preparation I could have done would have ever been enough. I remember speaking to a person that was a fairly successful entrepreneur before I'd left corporate, and he gave me some sound advice. It's not the only sound advice I've ever received, but it was useful all the same. And he said, look, whatever you think you're going to earn, halve it.
Yep.
And whatever you think that number is, halve that again. And
That's good advice.
Yeah. I thought, you know what? I said to him, well, thank bloody God I'm aiming for 10 mil in my first year. So I'm just saying that for a bit of a giggle. Sure. But in reality, that was, pretty good advice, and it was prudent and probably quite accurate.
Yeah.
So, I wasn't prepared, but I felt like the preparation is going to come through, like you said earlier, backing yourself and getting out there and taking action, not through continual and forever planning. So I had some semblance of an idea of what I could do. Obviously, I had some well-defined skill sets, yet what I didn't have was a target audience or clarity around where I could apply them. And so that next stage for me was, well, how do I and where do I apply these skills, and who do I want to apply them to, and who's prepared to pay, and can I deliver value and give them the results that they're after. So there was absolute ambiguity for me around that stage, not so much client acquisition insofar as getting business, but understanding who could I best deliver value to and serve, and and want to contribute, in a meaningful way. And that didn't happen for probably closer to years rather than just days or weeks or months.
Absolutely. No, it's a really good point. Well, this is an interesting period because when you're transitioning, you haven't got that clarity, because especially in your situation, you were kind of thrust into the situation. So I know, James, when I first started, I didn't really know what I was doing. I didn't have a lot of clarity in terms of, a lot of goals, vision. I hadn't really thought about who can I best help, like you say. And I spent, like you say, years trying to figure that stuff out because I left the corporate world 13 years ago. And when I did that, probably the first 4 or 5 years, I was just doing stuff, making money, but I didn't really have a proper end goal. And it wasn't until I came in touch with a couple of good mentors of mine that gave me direction. Did you find you had that kind of support or that help, for someone who was guiding you, or did you just try and battle it out as best you could in the early days?
A little bit of both. I absolutely had mentor support around me, no question about that at all. And by the same token, there's a finite amount that they can do, and you've got to get out there and earn your stripes or earn some battle scars and do some work. So they did guide me, and absolutely that helped me avoid some costly decisions, some decisions that would have been disastrous had I have gone through with them. So that was certainly worthwhile. By the same token, I still had to, go and deliver sales trainings, train certain businesses, etc., to find out what am I good at in terms of an industry segment, because I didn't want to just, so I've been in media because that's what Census is, but I didn't want to take my skills and just work at, The Age or News Corp or some other organisation. I wanted to, go beyond that, but I just wasn't too clear where that was to begin with, and I felt the only way I was going to get clarity was to get out there and do the do and understand who received it well, who I enjoyed working for, and where I felt like I could be useful in terms of my time and effort.
Yeah, fantastic. Did you find it was an interesting period when you're working in an organization, you're the big fish in a small pond, so to speak, and suddenly when you're out on your own, you're this tiny, tiny little fish that no one's ever heard of in this very, very big pond, and you've got to start from scratch and make a name for yourself. Did you find that an interesting experience?
Well, interesting is one word for it, or really bloody hard is another word for it too.
A blow to your ego in a lot of ways as well.
Yeah, or just the recognition of what you said is prior experience in some regards counts for little. When you're a coach or consultant, I think that what counts out of that is, in my opinion at least, the results your clients have achieved in the past. I think that carries an immense amount of weight. And, in my case, I think like a few people that step out of one role and have to redefine themselves is understanding how do you not just build your reputation in an overt way, which you can do in this industry. You can win an award for, lots of things. But how do you build your reputation based on substance and trust and relationships, which are things that are important to me, and so that you can have the confidence that the marketplace believes in you, and you can have the confidence of delivering the right value to them. And that didn't happen overnight. No bloody chance. It happened again over years.
Yeah. And so walk us through, like, what did you do in your first early days? Because I talk to a lot of people right now, James, and it's people that are starting off their very first business, or let's say they've never been in business before, but they're very good at what they do, and now they're either no longer with the organization, or in a lot of cases they're still working, but they're trying to do something on the side. So they've got limited time, they're trying to get something off the ground, and it's not as easy as they thought it would be. Because they haven't got the backing of the big organization behind them. They haven't got the brand name. They haven't got the IT department, and they haven't got HR, and they haven't got all these other resources that they're just so used to calling upon. Now they have to wear multiple hats. And it can be really daunting for someone. And a lot of people tend to give up because it's just too hard, or, it's not quite as fun as they thought it might be. Walk us through some of that, like when you first got started, because you would have been everything in your business on day one.
So the other thing I think most people don't have when they start is also the ability to make however many mistakes on someone else's money. Yes. So when you're doing it in your own business, you scrutinize your cash. In some regards, you probably make poorer decisions as a consequence of being so money conscious. Yeah. That I think to a degree, and over a period of time, when people start out, they're usually their mindset, as crazy as this sounds, is more around how can I save money, and they'll spend a lot of time doing things in order to save cash. But once they get the rocket ship off the ground, there's usually some point where their mindset transitions to how do I spend money to save time so I can be more productive and effective in how I operate. Yeah. That said, for me, the early stages again were challenging, and there's a combination of things that I was doing. Certainly conversations with a variety of different people. The one thing that I've noticed reasonably consistently that's quite obvious when some businesses or some people are challenged, regardless of the business that they have, is because they've built their craft or their skill set around that thing. I think the word cupcakes, like people like mentioning that because you take the cupcakes to the birthday. Oh, that's so fantastic! You should start a business. And all of a sudden, they start a business making cupcakes, and all of a sudden, it's gone from a hobby that they enjoyed to now there's a serious responsibility around it, and it's a very different set of skills that's required to make that a commercially viable enterprise. And so that education piece around sales, around marketing, around leading and developing, around managing finances, around systems and processes, etc. I think these terms get used pretty loosely and so forth, but I think the reality is that they're challenging skills to learn, and I think people can sometimes overestimate how easy it is to be good at those things or to hire the right people to help you in implementing the right skills into the business. And again, that can be hard to do when you're on a shoestring budget. So hence the need, I think, to get educated. And there's plenty of good generalist business programs out there to do that.
Yeah, really good point. Well, there's not all doom and gloom when you work at corporate. One of the best things I ever got working in corporate was exposure to all of these different areas you're talking about, like marketing and sales and HR and finance and IT and all of that. And, if you can put yourself, and I'm talking to the audience here, if you can, put yourself in a position where you can, during your time in corporate, if you have a plan to start a business, use your time there to learn as much as you can, learn about business. So you might have a very specific role that you're doing in the business right now, but you can use your time and your colleagues and the departments around you, the resources, to really understand how things interact, how things work. Because I'll tell you what, once you're out of that machine, it's really hard to try and figure this stuff out on your own. And if you've never had exposure, James, to, let's say you've got that sales background, but if you hadn't interacted a lot with the finance department or the HR department or all of these other things, when it comes down to you running your own business, you probably just don't really know how it all works. And it's confusing to try and figure it all out because you're a technician in your craft. And then now suddenly you have to learn very, very quickly on the job in your own business with your money, how to do all this stuff right. And it can be really daunting for some people.
Yeah, it can be. And by the way, when I talked earlier about good programs out there, yours clearly being one of those that people can invest into in order to build that skill. And here's something that I find interesting as well for some people in corporate, and a broad generalization is to say that when they come out, they'll say things like, I couldn't stand the culture, systems, processes, tools, templates, resources, etc. And they will, say all these words. It's almost like anything that stands for corporate is the antithesis of what I stand for now. And so what I think they realize over a period of time is there's a reason why corporates succeed, despite maybe some of the misgivings around the culture, is because they have systems, processes, templates, checklists for everything. And which is also why, on average, a corporate per person is inordinately more efficient in terms of revenue per team member as opposed to a small business. And it's because of all of those things that sometimes it's almost like we want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. So all of the skills that we learned over 5 or 10 years, it's almost like I don't want to learn any of that crap because, that was, yesteryear. I'm on this new person and, I want freedom, but that freedom comes at a price, and that price is having systems, processes, people, tools, templates, etc., in order to help allow you to enjoy the freedom that you might have hoped for when you began that journey. Sorry, I feel like I was getting a bit passionate then. Sorry.
No, I could tell. Well, as you were saying all of that, I completely 100% agree. Because look, even though my business is called Break Free from Corporate, I don't have a bad thing to say about corporate. In fact, one of the reasons why I encourage people to break free from corporate, there's a preface to that. It's only if you wish to, and again, that why has to come from yourself. But if you have a bigger purpose or a bigger vision or something you just want to do on your own, I encourage people to seek it out, to do it, because you don't want to live a life of regrets and not having tried something. And there's a world of opportunity out there. Yeah, please jump in.
Can I comment on that? So I remember explicitly sitting down with my then boss. This is when I was a sales manager, and I was, in the stage of talking to him about my next stage of journey. And actually, very softly, I was sort of even hoping he might have potentially become a business partner because he's a pretty good guy, and I felt like we could have done something good together. But notwithstanding, I remember saying to him these exact words. I said, mate, I'm really not too sure if I'm going to run a business and it's going to go well or not. I said, I honestly have no idea, but I also know that I'll never find out unless I give it a go. And I said, I cannot face the prospect of having a conversation with myself when I'm 75 years out, 75 years of age, on my rocking chair, looking over the veranda and saying I could have and should have did it, but I never did. I said, I just cannot face the prospect of that conversation, which means that as much as it's uncomfortable for me to take this next step, it's far less uncomfortable than the thought of the alternative conversation.
Yeah. And that's a decision you ultimately have to rest with, and for some people it might be, well, you know what, the risk of not trying it is greater, therefore I won't. Or in some cases, it's, even if I were to lose almost everything, the risk of not trying it is just, incomprehensible. So therefore, I'm going to give it a go. But I think that's fantastic that whichever way it landed, you made that choice, and then you went on this journey. Obviously, things were tricky in the beginning, and you had to figure out a lot of things, and you had some people in your corner. Tell us about the business that you got into. So, obviously you have a sales media sort of background. What type of business did you get into? Is it the same business you're doing today? Change a little bit during the course of the last few years?
It definitely changed. So I was you might call a generalist sales trainer when I began. And what I didn't like about that was that every single company you went and provided service to, you had to understand that company in some level of detail to therefore design the content to be relevant for them. And I don't think most people appreciate that there's immeasurably greater work in the preparation of the content than there is in the delivery. Even, one day program might take 3 or 4 or 5 days of getting the content well prepared. And so for me, that whole, prep piece, 3 or 4 or 5 days work just to deliver 1 day's training wasn't that exciting. I wanted to create the content once and deliver it many, many times and not have to continually reinvent the wheel. So there was a part of my idea to niche, which is, these days, so, 6 years ago, if you had have asked me, I would have said it was, 5 years ago, mortgage brokers. And these days I can say it's mortgage brokers who are established in their business and they're earning X amount, which is to say, at least 10K per month and quite often a fair bit more than that in terms of the people we work with. So that way I'm clearer on who I provide value to and what the service offering is so that I can understand if it's a match or if it isn't. But that happened over a period of time, and it happened because I understood what I stood for over a period of time, and it goes back to a part of the advice I got initially, where one of my mentors, when I quizzed her about, I've got a business colleague, I love her, I respect her greatly, she's fantastic, and she says, don't do it. I said, what? And she said, you're going to tell me that you want to go into business with her. I said, yeah. She said, don't do it. You don't know what you stand for yet. You think you do, but you don't, because you haven't gone out there and done enough work to understand who you are and what you're about in the real world. So avoid that. And I went and sort of quietly went and asked another person in the same training company who didn't know I asked the first one. I said, "What's your opinion?" And she says the same thing. I was like, "Okay, good."
Okay. It reaffirms it. Well, it's actually a really good point you just bring up, because I get a lot of people who say, "Oh, look, I'm thinking of going into some sort of a partnership model with one of my best friends or one of my colleagues, that I work with, or someone in the family and things like that." And this is even before the business is even like taken off. They haven't even worked out what the business really stands for. And so one of the cautionary things I say to them is exactly what these two people said to you, which is, if you don't know what you stand for and what your idea or your business stands for, and if you can't stand on your own 2 feet first, going into a partnership can be a very tricky thing, because look, it can work, but the chances of it succeeding are very slim to none in the early days, because if you don't know what you stand for and the other person doesn't, there's going to be this codependency, and neither one is going to bring any strength to the partnership. Whereas I believe if you have a business model that's working and you need this missing piece, and you find someone else who's got that piece, and you both collaborate and you work together and form that partnership, now you've got something that can grow, because you're leveraging each other rather than really depending on each other for survival. I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I concur. And I think the beautiful thing about business is it allows you to have some journey of self-discovery. Yeah. And equally, though, is another saying I heard many years ago is something to the effect of money screws with people. And so, and I'm sure each of us could tell many a story. Certainly I can, but I won't, around how, people I've certainly worked with in the past, conversations I've had of, fraud, theft, etc., all of that stuff in business. So, the idea of at least having one person being able to make some of those key decisions in the early stages, I think, is worthwhile, and allows you to then get more clarity around who you are, what you stand for, what your values are, and what you do or don't tolerate. And as a consequence of that, then if you can or do choose to seek some skill sets that are complementary to yours, so be it. But I think it's inherently fraught with danger to do that with someone other than your husband or wife in the early days, because someone's seen many those types of relationships work in business.
Definitely.
But outside of that, I think exercise caution. Yeah.
No, good advice. Well, you mentioned you work closely with mortgage brokers and help them develop their business. How did you get into why mortgage brokers? Was there an affiliation there? Did you have some experience having done something in that area, or you just thought that's a good area to go in, or was there an opportunity? Like, walk us through the mindset of how you got into that line or that sort of segment of the market.
So I firstly was asked by a person that I knew who was a broker to help him, and I was like, well, that's good. He said yes, and okay, what am I going to do? So there was a bit of that sort of, in the early stages.
Yeah.
But then that led to more business. So it led to a couple of referrals, and then that led to more business. And I thought, again, another saying I heard is, if you go out there and do enough work, your niche will appear, rather than trying to, sit on the couch and, get the, the niche sort of hit you in the, like an epiphany. So that was my evidence. Is I got out there and I did enough work, and I realised, okay, well, I've done work with all of these various companies, from IT startups to kitchen manufacturers to real estate agents to, certainly a lot of mortgage brokers. Who did I enjoy working with? Who did I feel like I could offer a lot of value to? And then that was my recognition of where I guess I was valued, and equally where I felt I could add value. And my role over time, though, has transitioned in terms of how I work with them, because the bulk of people I work with these days, actually practically everybody, they don't have a sales skill. A sales challenge. That's because they make good to great money. They're obviously good enough at communicating their value and helping their own clients understand the decisions they're making. In other words, they can convert the deal. They've got other challenges operationally in terms of how their business is performing, or where the time and energy is being placed. And so my service to them has evolved over time from one being that was sales oriented to one that's more around business strategy, business optimization, and streamlining how productive and profitable they are to get the most out of the time and effort that's being put in.
Excellent. I'm sure they would see that really, really valuable because, like you said, they know how to sell. They can close the deal. They've been doing this for a while. They're making decent money, but there's obviously, we don't know everything, and there's things you don't know what you don't know. And so suddenly there's this gap and they don't know how to get to the next level. So they realize, gee, I need help in this area. And then you come along and you've got the tools, the resources, and the systems and all to help them. And that's what you do, which is fantastic. So I think that's really great. You mentioned...
Can I just add to that?
Yeah, please.
I notice, for me at least, and a sweeping generalization, that when the person, as in the person I'm working with, and tends to be the case with the clients I work with, that they place a lot more value on making good decisions and avoiding bad decisions, rather than people that are newer into business that place a lot more value on how much content do I get, how many templates do I have, and how much time do I get with you. And that's their perception of value, whereas the people I work with tends to be, they're not so worried about how much time we spend together as much as they are helping make the right decisions that, well, firstly, avoid the wrong decision. It means that it's easier and quicker to get to where they want to go, and then they can have more confidence in following through to get the outcomes that they're after.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. Yeah, at the end of the day, it's, well, what are you actually after? And if you help them get there quicker in a much more organized manner, it doesn't matter whether you spend 5 minutes showing them how to do that or 5 hours. For them, it's the end result.
Totally, yeah. Whereas in some cases, the whole tactical thing is a lot more prevalent, and so they will equate value with well, we get 160 templates here, or we get 10 hours of your time there, etc. Whereas some of my clients, not all of them, but some of them barely use the templates or the resources. They just want the right input to make the right decisions.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, I like that. Well, the truth is, when I first started my business, James, I was actually, charging very close to charging per the hour in terms of what I did in blocks of hours and things like that. And I had to justify, not just to the person I was helping, but to myself as well, the kind of value I'm providing per hour. I had to shift my entire mindset out of that, because at the end of the day, I had to really, it took me years to work this out. But I had to get to the point where, what am I actually there to help them with? It's not the hours. It's not the, here's what you get every, and then running this treadmill of a business. At the end of the day, I had to elevate myself to the point where this is the service I'm providing. And regardless of the time and effort, it's more the result or where you're going to get to. And if I can help you get there, whether it takes, a week, 5 weeks, 2 days, 3 hours, it's irrelevant. It actually is a huge mindset shift. And so what you're talking about takes time to work through, and the only way you can really work that out is by starting doing it and then clarifying and getting better and iterating on your business over and over again till you kind of fine tune it. I don't know if there's
you heard of Brian Tracy?
Oh yeah, definitely.
So in one of his books called Focal Point, the first story he shares, it talks about this idea of a nuclear power plant that's about to go bust. And, they're like, oh my God, we're about to go into a meltdown here. We need to solve this problem. I'm ad-libbing a little bit. I don't remember all of the specifics, but, they call in an expert to say, well, can you help us out? And so the guy takes a little bit of time, looks around at some control panels, does a bit of measuring, and then walks over to a particular hole on the wall, gets a black texter out and, puts a mark there and says, drill a hole here.
Yeah.
They drill a hole and, nuclear power, implosion is averted. And so couple of days later, they get a bill for 10 grand, and they're like, well, hang on, it's a bit high. You came in for a couple of hours. You told us to do one hole. We think you would like the invoice amended. It's like, yeah, okay, that makes sense. So he amended the invoice to say placing dot on the wall, $5. Knowing where to place the dot, $9,995. And so I think it's useful for the entrepreneurs or those that are aspiring to be, is to recognise that value that they've accumulated over, probably many years. And as a consequence, that's the point, is it's accumulated over many years. So you can give that to a person quickly and avoid them the trouble of taking years to experience it or to go through it. And so that's saving them immeasurably more than what they would cost themselves if they had to go about it on their own.
Yeah, and it's saving having to recreate the wheel and do the work over and over again. Again, being in business, if it's a challenging thing on its own. It's not necessarily for everyone, although I do believe everyone can attempt it or do it. But again, if you can save yourself time by having someone who's been there, done it before, can show you the ropes, or at least save you a lot of heartache, making certain decisions and showing you where the pitfalls are and where the potholes are and all of that sort of stuff, why not take it up? Because otherwise, what could take you 10 years, why go through the agony? If you can get it done in 2 years or 3 years, save yourself time, because money can be made in any number of ways. Time, once it's gone, it's gone. And, time goes really, really quickly, James. The last time you and I spoke was several years ago, and gee, time just flies. So,
very much so.
Yeah. Now let's talk really briefly around technology, because obviously, when you started your business and where it is now, has technology played a big role in terms of what you're doing, and how so?
I'd say it plays a role. I'm not sure about big. I'd just say a role in my business. I don't try and I try and use it effectively, but I don't try and overstate, or I don't try and overutilize it at the cost of elements of what we do. I think there's a fine balance to be had. So what I mean by that is, I could technology the hell out of what we do, but by the same token, I'd be just selling online courses, and for me, just selling online courses isn't the business that I'm in. My overwhelming experience and observations are that that's a great way for the person selling to provide a very scalable service, but few people who are participants get results. So that said, it's also incumbent upon the person buying the program to do the work, right? It's the same as when you buy a book. The author doesn't come around to your house to make sure that you've read it.
That's right.
They just he just sells it. He writes it, he sells it, and you either read it, you don't, and he or she doesn't care either way. Mostly. But notwithstanding the tech, sorry, I'm a bit of a rant there.
No, that's okay.
The tech plays some role insofar as, of course, it helps facilitate the nurturing of prospects, and we've got email sequences, and obviously a website, and tools like Zapier that connect different technologies together. What we do there is probably no different than what the bulk of people do. We use Trello in terms of a day-to-day task management tool, which frankly is a simple and easy to use tool. And we've got other tools in the back end like Kajabi that are obviously good from a membership point of view, housing resources, and so all of these things, of course, provide some level of automation and efficiency. We're just trying to temper that with, are we doing efficiency for the sake of delivering a good customer experience, or is it, the right balance being struck between the tech and the experience?
Yeah, no, really great. I'm glad you actually broke it down into all of those different levels, because technology is definitely a good thing to get your head around. If you haven't, if you're not in an area at work where you deal a lot with technology, certainly when you get into business, it's very hard to otherwise leverage yourself if you're not working smart. And I always encourage people, James, to work smarter, not harder, right? So if you can find ways to duplicate yourself in some certain scenarios, or automate certain things, or outsource certain things where, maybe it's not your best strength, and someone else can do it at a far greater efficiency, maybe even cheaper or whatever it might be, but it frees up your time to do more productive, more resource heavy work from your end, then that might be a smarter way to go. And technology certainly plays a really key role. But you're quite right in saying, depending on what type of business you're in, if your business is where the value you place is working closely with someone, communicating, delivering your value, either face to face, over the phone, whatever it might be. There's only so far, technology will go so far, but don't forget why you're in business as well, and I think you summed it up really well there. So tell us a little bit. Oh, yeah, sure.
So one extra thought is I don't think there's a so-called right answer to that, insofar as some people will argue that it's all about the tech. Some people will say it's all about the personalization of the service.
Yes.
So I think it's a judgment call for each business owner to make that reflects who they are, what their brand is about, and the experience that they want to deliver.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, there's plenty of really good businesses out there that have very little to do with talking to another human being. Most of it is automated, like you say, online courses or things like that. And that's perfectly fine. If that's the model you're after and that's what you want to go into, you work out what is best for you and then you make that happen. But again, it's a decision you got to make. You got to be happy with it. And, as long as it ticks all those boxes, technology, there's plenty of technology. It's evolving faster than you and I can even understand. So,
yes.
Tell us a little bit, James, about, structure in terms of having a vision, having goals, and how important is that when you get into business, that you place an importance on deciding the path, what are the milestones, where it is you're trying to go? Because I know you would have done that in your sales career and certainly as a sales manager, but being in business, how critical is it that you do the same thing?
I reckon my opinion around this has probably changed over time, because I've, from almost day one, had some sort of vision. But I think the reality is that I probably didn't believe in it as much as I do right now, in terms of what I've now got as my vision. Now I stand behind it, I look at it and I go, hell yeah, that's what we're about. Whereas I've had it in the past, I think it was a little bit self-serving and grandiose and focused on me rather than focused on who we want to serve and who we want to be a champion to. So it makes me think that in the early days of running a business, yes, it's important to have clarity of your target market. I probably wouldn't compromise trying to articulate a vision with more so than making money in the early days. And I don't want to sound too commercial about it, but you've got to make sales. You've got to get out there and sign up clients. And if you're sitting there trying to work out your mission statement, or you can be on the phone or at a networking event and making sales, so I'd say every day of the week, get out there and make a sale and sort the other stuff out over time. As you sign up more people, you recognize who you are, you understand what people like about you, etc. And then I think it's easier to articulate a vision that's consistent with your philosophy, but you could otherwise be trying to solve problems that you don't yet have. And so I wouldn't have done what I did again. So if I was giving myself coaching in, from hindsight perspective, I would say, mate, stop screwing around with trying to articulate a vision for today. Get out there, make some more sales, help more people, be more useful, and you'll then know what you're about. And I probably would have arrived at a similar insight, but at some point earlier than what I've done.
And your cash flow would probably be looking a little bit better as well, because you would have made sales earlier in the piece, probably.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. So, I believe me, I believe in values and mission statements and, vision statements. I really do. And, sometimes people say, well, and I think, to be perfectly frank, some thought leaders like to say, well, vision's really not what we're about these days. It's all about the cause. But actually, all I think that is mostly that thought leader is trying to have a new angle on the same old stuff. Yeah. Because if you say the same old stuff, you can't monetize it. Whereas if you say new words, well, all of a sudden it becomes your IP.
Yes.
So call me cynical if you want, but regardless of what you want to call it, vision, mission, or otherwise, I mean, I realize they're different things, by the way. I see the vision is the long-term objective, and the mission is what you do day to day to get you there.
Yep.
But yes, very important. But don't try and solve for that on day one of your business. I'd say park that for a little while, get out there and help a few people, and I think you'll arrive at least in some description it, more clarity around what those things are that are most meaningful for you.
No, perfect. No, thank you for the slightly different way of looking at it as well, because I know a lot of people who spend a lot of time on that stuff early on, and at the end of the day, like, you're in business. Business is about actually trying to get a turnover as quickly as you can. Otherwise, you're not really in business, you know. And so, yep, no, fantastic. Now,
I'm not anti-strategy, by the way. I do
sure.
a lot of strategy stuff, but I just reckon on day one is for some people. I mean, like, day one of your business or week one is probably too early to be working out some parts of that. Sure, you can work out, you know, if you're clear on your target market, you're clear on what your business does, it's easier to work out value offering and you know, maybe a brand statement or something of those lines. But I reckon for a lot of people, if they're getting out there, they probably don't know those things most times. And so hence, you know, that can be derived over time when you've got the cash, you've got the clarity, and you've got a client base to sustain you. And then you can go, great, so now I can have more structure and scale and capability around how I operate.
No, fantastic. That all makes perfect sense. And how do you arrive at any kind of balance in life when, you know, you're working, or you've got your business going, you're trying to figure everything out, plus you're trying to have a normal life and all of that? How much importance in the early days did you place on work-life balance, or was it a bit skewed until you found a healthy balance and then you tried to put some sort of order and structure around how you do things?
I'm not sure if it's right or wrong to say this, but I reckon I probably don't work more hours now than I used to in corporate. So I would definitely left home sooner in the morning, and I definitely arrived home later at night. Yeah. And because I have 2 hours less of travel, you know, I can get into my office, you know, by walking up the stairs. And so I absolutely would have a better work-life balance now than I ever did. And so I'm really comfortable working, you know, the hours I work, which is somewhere between, you know, any given week between sort of 35 hours at the low end and more likely, you know, sort of 40 to 50. And I'm totally comfortable with that because I start, you know, reasonably early in the morning. I sort of knock off by, you know, 5:30 in the afternoon, and, you know, spend a bit of time with the kids before I go and cook dinner.
Fantastic. And I guess one of the great things about being your own boss and being in your own business, you control a lot of that. And, you know, if you want to take half a day off or a day off or a week off, you can really call the shots. But, you know, if you're enjoying what you're doing and it's a business that you're passionate about and you're putting in the extra time, you probably won't even really consider it work at the end of the day. So, but having a balance with other elements of your life, I think, is important as well, because, you know, you can't forget your spouse, and you can't forget the kids, and you can't forget, you know, in just trying to get your startup off the ground. I think it's important to just weigh everything, and looking after your health, making sure you do things like drink water, get out in the sun. You know, it's easy to stay cocoon at the study desk and just put in 12 hours trying to figure things out. But if you need to really get out there as well and live life. So,
nicely said.
Yeah. Okay. Well, look, James, what I normally do when I get to, I guess later on in the program as we are now, is we play this little game, and I'd really love for you to be a part of it. It's kind of called a rapid response section, and I've had all kinds of responses with these sort of things, but it's just off the hip, whatever comes to your mind. I'll just kind of shoot 5 questions at you. There's no right or wrong, and you can go on a tangent if you need to. But are you willing to give it a go?
Ready, willing, and who knows if I'm able, but we'll give it a crack.
Okay. What is your favorite mode of learning? Have you got one?
Video is number one.
Awesome. Have you got a role model or a hero, someone that you look up to that's been influential in your life? You can have more than one.
Yeah, look, more recently, I did give this some thought, and the person whose values resonate highly with me is Simon Sinek.
Yes.
More latterly, and not so much for his early work where he talks about, you know, his golden triangle and, you know, the what, why, and the how, but more so to do with his stance around leadership and modern day leadership versus leadership from the 80s or 70s. And that to me really reflects the type of leader that I want to be from both my staff, who I don't really consider staff anyway. I think about people in my business as team members, and and also support my clients in a similar way.
Great.
And help them embrace those philosophies and ways of treating their own people as well.
Awesome. I'm sure you've got many quotes that you've come across, and you would have shared with other people. Is there one or even two, but that really stand out, that over and over again, it's just that it just reverberates in everything you do, or has a huge impact in everything you do? Is there anything you'd like to share from that perspective?
A few years ago, I came across a quote, and when I was preparing for our conversation, this one came immediately to mind, and I thought, well, you know what? If it's come that quickly to me, there's probably some reason for it. So I didn't try and question it. I just went with it, and it's from Mary Kay Ash,
yes,
who started her Mary Kay Cosmetics company, and it says, pretend that every single person you ever meet in life has a sign around his or her neck that says, "Make me feel important." Not only will you succeed in sales, you'll succeed in life.
I've never heard
like that.
I've heard of Mary Kay, but that's a fantastic quote. Yep.
Yeah, it's simple, but it resonates with me.
Yeah, so I really like that one. That's a great one. You mentioned about, I think really early on we were talking about something around causes or whatever, but is there a cause or charity or anything like that you either support or have been a part of, perhaps in your personal life and things like that you might like to share with our audience?
A cause I've supported for many years is the Red Cross, but more latterly, I've just been reviewing this as a matter of coincidence more recently in terms of something I want the business to support. And it's something that I feel resonates with me. And when I say I feel, I've not had personal experience of domestic violence, but I feel like it's an important thing to help people become better educated around how they manage their own emotions, particularly men. I've certainly had close exposure in situations where it's very, very clear that there was terrible domestic violence going on. And in every instance that I've come across anyway, actually, I was going to say, for instance, that's not true. I've come across one instance where a guy I used to work with, his wife's mother was beating him up, if you can believe that.
Wow. Okay.
He was a small man, but in any case, that literally was a marriage breaker, because he said to his wife, you're going to support me? And she said, I've got to support my mum.
Right.
So not a word of a lie, it ended the marriage. But domestic violence is something that, I've had a bit of exposure to through just neighbours and so forth. And I feel like that's an area that we as a society could do better in.
Yeah, fantastic. That's a great one. Well, good luck with supporting that really important cause there. Now, is there anything, James, that you'd like to share with our audience, which maybe a lot of people don't know about you? We can read up on things on LinkedIn and on posts and on your podcast and all that, but is there anything that you'd like to share with us that maybe is a little bit quirky or funny or something in your childhood growing up that you'd like to share? That could be anything, literally.
Yeah, look, that's PG rated. We'll go with this.
Yep.
So I used to live in Istanbul, so not too many people would know that. Okay. And so I lived there for just short of a year, and so that was an amazing time that I had.
It would have been fantastic. Yeah.
It was, I literally had the culture shock of and questioned at one point whether I would go home because honestly it was almost too much for me to bear. But I stuck it out, and I'm glad I did because I just had the most phenomenal year of my life. So that was amazing. And just somewhere prior to that, when I was travelling through England at a place that's near Downing Street, I made one of the Queen's guards laugh, and actually that was pretty funny to me because he started laughing and I started laughing, and then there was a crowd watching because I was telling the stroke, and they started laughing, and anyway, that was all very unusual. Not sure how often they laugh, but anyway.
I've been exactly there, and the Queen's Guards and all those people, they do not show any emotion. So the fact that you got a laugh out of that, I think that's hats off to you.
Thanks. I was wearing my Essendon footy jumper, which typical, bogan Australian traveller.
Yeah. Fantastic. Well, hey, listen, thanks for sharing all of the stuff you've shared with us today, James. I've learned a few things from you as well, and it's always great to hear another person's journey every single one of us have a different story to tell. And the great thing is you still got the best part of your life to still live and develop the rest of your story. So, good luck with everything you're doing now. Where do you see, is there anything that we should be keeping an eye out for, if we're following you, let's say in your business? Have you got anything on the horizon, things that are exciting that are coming up, or as part of your vision that you'd like, you're working towards that we can look out for?
Probably nothing overt. It's more about how do we continue to be the best version of our business for serving our clients and serving the industry. So for me, that's really at the forefront of everything we do. Certainly serving the clients, our members, first and foremost. And secondly is in contributing back to the industry. So, I don't think that's overly sexy to say that, but it really is helping define the decisions we make and how our business operates to be the best version of a supplier and a resource and as a champion for our clients.
Fantastic. And for our audience that are listening, now, obviously we've got a lot of different types of people that listen to this, but how can people get either get in touch with you or look you up or try to find you online? What would be the best way?
Probably the best way would be if you're a mortgage broker, then to go to our probably our Facebook group, which is called Brokers Super Group, or alternatively, if anyone just wanted to have a squeeze at what we do, then the website would absolutely be the easiest way to go, which is thesuccessfuladvisor.com, and where advisor is spelled with an ER. So adviser.com.
I noticed that. I was actually going to ask you, is there a particular reason why it's ER?
Yeah, because when I was doing the business registration, I looked at some other spelling in the industry and I had that. And I thought, I'll just follow suit, even though ER is, as it turns out, the more formal way to do it. And most people spell it with an OR. And in hindsight, I would have done an OR if I have had my chance again.
Yeah, fantastic. Okay, well, thank you very much again, James, for being a part of the show, and I'm glad we finally got this one done. And
thank you.
You're welcome. Anyone listening, if you are a mortgage broker or you know a mortgage broker, head on over to the Successful Advisor with an ER. Get in touch with James, and hope you guys can do some business together.
Thanks, mate. It's been a pleasure, and I hope this has been of some use for your audience.
No, definitely. Thank you, James. If you like this podcast and would like to understand a little bit more about what was just discussed, then you're in luck. Simply head over to breakfreefromcorporate.com and we have a fantastic bonus gift waiting for you to download. All we ask in return is that you leave us a review on iTunes and or Stitcher, whichever you use. And lastly, help us share this podcast around with your friends, your colleagues through Facebook, Twitter, Google+, or LinkedIn. We truly appreciate all your support, and we look forward to seeing you on the next episode.
Thank you for listening to this podcast episode of Break Free from Corporate. Once again, to access previous and all future episodes, visit breakfreefromcorporate.com and subscribe today.